Hello Internet, welcome to the Curious Task blog. I'm Daniel Schaefer. In my last video I talked about defining economics, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the force that compels people to do the things that they do. It's incentives basically, and I think you're probably all pretty familiar with this concept. But in case you're not, here's the dictionary definition. An incentive is a thing that motivates or encourages one to do something. And that's basically just putting into words the concept that I think most people are familiar with. And I was thinking about incentives in my own life to use as an example. I woke up at 7:42 this morning. Actually didn't get out of bed till 7:44. And I wonder why did I do this? I would much rather have just slept in until 10 or 11 or whenever I feel like waking up. I could just get up then. But there's a reason that I got up at 7:42, and that is I have an 8 o'clock class, and I have an incentive to go to that class because I want to learn what's going on in the class. And I value that class more than an extra couple hours of sleep. So I had an incentive to wake up that early in the morning. That's an incentive right there. Another one that my textbook uses, which I think is a really, really effective example, is of prison transport ships in the 1800s, where Europe would basically send its criminals to Australia, and the ship captains that ferried them over would be paid a certain amount per person that they took on board their ship and sent over, to Australia. But there was a problem with that system, and that was basically that a lot of the prisoners died. In fact, a substantial amount of them did, because the food was bad, the living conditions were bad, everything was unsanitary. The ship captains just didn't care. The passengers were criminals, and they had already gotten their money, so there was no reason for them to try to take care of the prisoners. And there was a lot of reform trying to happen in Europe. People were trying to legislate better conditions, better, everything, trying to keep the prisoners alive. But it wasn't really working. And at some point, someone suggested that instead of paying the ship captains a certain amount of money for each prisoner that they take on board, the ship captains should be paid for each prisoner that arrives in Australia. And so by altering that incentive, by making that a new regulation, the rate of prisoners that survived the trip across the ocean, it skyrocketed. So many more people stayed alive because the captains now had an incentive to keep the prisoners alive. I think that's a really, really powerful example of incentives and how those affect our actions.